Hi, welcome to Talking Books and Stuff, the program that talks all about books and writing and stuff. Here's your host, Dennis Rimmer.
And we're rolling once again. This is Dennis Rimmer with Talking Books and Writing and Stuff. Today we're talking not about books, but maybe we are, and some writing, maybe songwriting, and other stuff, which is records, music. From a music collector, we're talking with Dave the Rave with his Relics and Rarities show from the No Static Attic with a transmitter he built from the Allied catalog. But don't tell his mom. Dave the Rave, how the heck are you?
Well, I'm doing great, and I'm honored to be a part of your program. And so hello to you, and yes, no doubt about it, I am a record geek.
And where exactly is the No Static Attic located?
No Static Attic is actually in central New Jersey.
So you're not close to the coast?
Not close to the coast. I'm about 20 minutes from the coast.
Oh, okay. So that's good. So you know all about Asbury Park and the Stone Pony and all that kind of stuff?
No doubt about it. I spent a lot of time down there, and I still head down there periodically. And in fact, from 1978 to about 1982, I actually was the club DJ and the house announcer for a very popular club called the Fast Lane. Of course, most people think of Asbury Park, they think of the Stone Pony, which certainly has a great history to it. But from 78 to 82, actually the Fast Lane was the place to go because the Stone Pony started doing cover bands, and it was the Fast Lane that was bringing in original recording acts. So that's where all the cool recording acts, national acts, George Thorogood, Beaver Brown, David Johansen, Sly and the Family Stone, Sam and Dave, we had them all coming to the Fast Lane in Asbury Park, and that, of course, attracted the big attraction, which is Bruce Springsteen, down to the Fast Lane Club. So, yes, very familiar with Asbury Park.
Well, one of these days I'm going to have to head down there. I was in Atlantic City once, but never Asbury Park. And we're talking
is that because you lost your shirt in Atlantic City and had no more money left to go to Asbury Park?
It was way back in 79, so I don't even know if there were casinos there then. So,
I see.
Way back when. And then we went into New York City. So Dave the Rave is with us, talking about his No Static Attic and his record collection. Now, we're talking 45s here. Let's talk about 45 singles, as we used to call them. At current count, at present, how many do you have?
Very close to about 118,000.
So you're always adding to the collection. The last story I saw, it was like 110,000, so...
Oh, yes. No, I'm pretty much buying every day a record.
And where do you find it? Where do you find these? In stores or online or both?
Well, typically no, online, and then there are some dealers that will contact me. They're familiar with the show. They have a pretty good idea of the type of music that I play. So a lot of times I will get a dealer who will call me and say, "Hey, Dave, I got a couple records here. I think, it could be you." And let's say they have 10 records lined up. I might have 7 already of the 10, but then 3 of the 10 that they're playing for me, the little snippet over the phone, are things that I don't have that sound like they could fit into my show. But a lot of it is on eBay or the program called Discogs.
And Dave the Rave is with us now. From what I remember, your first record, the first 45, was something you won at a dance contest?
Won in a dance contest. I was about 8 years old at the time, and I was had an outgoing personality then. I guess I would say I have it to this day. And of course, the disc jockey was trying to find somebody among the little kids that were there who would be a volunteer to get this thing kicked off. And of course, I'm like, yeah, I'll jump out on that dance floor. And for jumping out on the dance floor, I was awarded with a 45 by the Majors. Came out on the Imperial record label. A tune that I still love to this day, a tune called A Wonderful Dream. And I guess in a way it was the beginning of a wonderful dream because I'm dreaming all these great 45s and all the great music that, both were hits and records which I love to play on my show, of course, songs that never really, got their day in the sun, but they certainly have the sound, and they have the sound that I think they should have been a hit.
Well, I guess that's just sometimes the luck of the draw, isn't it? You hear records and you wonder how the heck that ever got anywhere. Then you'll hear ones such as the ones you're playing on your program, which is Dave the Rave's Relics and Rarities. We'll get into that in a moment. And I'm saying I never heard that before, but that should have been a number one smash. So it's just...
that is the exact sentiment I'm always hoping for. I'm hoping that somebody will tune into the program and, hear a song that they're familiar with, maybe another song that they're familiar with, and then all of a sudden, hey, I don't know this record, but sounds good. I must have missed it somehow. Of course, it's one that maybe really never was a hit, and they didn't miss it because it never got played, but they're hearing it for the first time, and they're feeling that excitement today that they may have heard, back in time when they used to hear new songs on the radio. They're able to discover new oldies on the Relics and Rarities show.
And after you got that record when you were about 8 or so from the dance hop, the rec sock hop, we used to call them, and then your dad bought you a Beatles record, is that right?
Well, eventually there actually was another dance contest. So my second 45 was same way I got the first one, through a dance contest. And that was actually Monster Mash by Bobby Boris Pickett and the Crypt Kickers. But yes, eventually, as many people know the date of February 9th of 1964, the Beatles came onto the Ed Sullivan Show. And myself and millions of American kids fell in love with rock and roll and the sound, that fresh new sound and look that the Beatles brought to America. So I was at a Corvette's record store. I was there to buy an album. I think it was Peter and the Wolf, if I recall, that I had to get for a music appreciation class. But there was the big display for Meet the Beatles as seen on the Ed Sullivan Show. That was kind of like the stanchion that most stores were given by the record company to display the new album, Meet the Beatles. So I did a good crybaby act at Corvette's. They didn't have Peter and the Wolf, so we went next door to Woolworth's. And there was the stanchion and the display for the Beatles once again. So I tried harder, and I did a much better crybaby screaming act, and my father succumbed to the cries, and he ended up buying me the Meet the Beatles album, and that was my first album. And, of course, no regrets over becoming a Beatle fan back in '64.
And on that one, that Meet the Beatles, there were lots of what you call cover songs, weren't there? And songs done by girl groups. Like, there was really hardly any originals on it, if I recall.
Well, there were some originals, but, of course, in those early days, the Beatles did cover a lot of rhythm and blues songs, whether it would be Chuck Berry, Arthur Alexander's, 45 of Anna. Larry Williams, Bad Boy, the Shirelles, Sha-La-La. Oh, wait, that was the Manfred Band. I take that back. But, yes, they covered a lot of early rhythm and blues, and, of course, some early rock and roll from America, Carl Perkins, Honey Don't, on one of those early albums. But they do have, some original songs on there as well. And, of course, as time went on, they did more and more of their own, originals.
And up here in Canada, we had sometimes an album with a different title to it, and like Meet the Beatles or Beatles for Sale or stuff like that. And they were mostly on the Capitol record label. But one of my previous wives, talking about the Beatles, had a Beatle 45 on the Tolley label, Tolley. Have you heard of them? Yeah,
the Tolley label was released in America as well. So that Tolley 45 exists, here in America. But you are correct that there were some things that came out in Canada, and there was actually a 45. I don't recall offhand which one it was, but there was some 45 that were released. It might have been, but I'm thinking that Rollover Beethoven, for example, might have been a 45 released in Canada but not in America. That's a possibility, but there were some variations. And then, of course, there were other British invasion groups like the Dave Clark Five that, for example, were released in America on the Epic record label, but you'll find the 45 releases in Canada on Capitol.
And I'm just wondering, the Tolly record label, is that rare or is that pretty common? I got it in the U.S., so...
Yeah, that was common in America.
Okay. First record, first 45 you ever bought with your own money?
Couldn't tell you that. Don't recall.
Mine was Shop Around by the Miracles. That's the first 45 I ever bought.
Well, folks and listeners to Dennis's show, that tells me that Dennis Rimmer's got a good taste in music, because Shop Around by the Miracles, that's a great first buy.
And then after that, I think we joined the Columbia Record Club and got, I think Johnny Cash and Marty Robbins were two of the first LPs I got.
Well, I was a member of that club as well, the Columbia Record Club. You put, for $2 or some ridiculously low amount, you join the club, and then, of course, you had an obligation to buy so many albums at regular price over the rest of the year, or something to that effect. But I was a member of that club as well. So we are like club members, club carrying members, Dennis. We are connected, and we didn't even realize it.
That's right. We're talking with Dave the Rave. He has a Relics and Rarities radio show, and he's based in New Jersey, Freehold, New Jersey area, I think. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
And
you're honing in on my secret location, and I don't mind.
Oh, okay. Where did you come up with the name, the No Static Attic?
Well, truth be told, I'd love to take credit for all of those cool ideas, but what happened was, it was a real good stroke of luck. I worked at a Central Jersey radio station, WPDQ, and I'm not going to lie, this is the truth. I had the most popular show on that radio station. I had a great audience on Saturday nights, the most advertisers, but the station, sold, and the format changed, and now I was a disc jockey with a large record collection, and no station to work at. So, as a stroke of luck would go, there was, of course, here in America, we have something called satellite radio, which, of course, is coast to coast. It's kind of like the pinnacle of where a disc jockey would want to be, because now you're heard, like I said, coast to coast. So everybody would want to be on that's like the big time. And there was members of a group called Richard and the Young Lions, who in 1966 released a song called "Open Up Your Door" on the Phillips record label, and it was #1 in several regional markets, but only peaked on the Billboard Top 100 charts for 1 week only at number 99. That's just a little background on that particular group, Richard and the Young Lions. But fellas from that group were subscribers to satellite radio, XM radio to be specific. And they were calling in XM radio to make requests, and they were requesting songs that they heard on my show. And the program director said to one of the fellas, where are you hearing these records? Because I have no idea what these songs that you're calling in for. I've never heard of these songs. And they said, there's this guy in Jersey who's got this really cool radio show, Dave the Rave, and we heard them on the Relics and Rarities show. So he was curious, and that's rare for a program director. A lot of times they just stick to what they know. But this program director, Cleveland Wheeler, said, do you have a contact number for this Dave the Rave? Reached out to me, asked me to send him some audition tapes. I did, and he fell in love with the show. In fact, I still remember his exact comment was pretty much, I never heard these songs, but they sound great. I want to put you on coast-to-coast satellite radio. So they created the imaging of the show. They created the whole intro to my show, the No Static Attic, the Allied, kit. And the funny thing is that as I tried to become more professional, there was a time when the program director called me up. He said, listen, you're starting to sound too professional. I need you to sound like not a professional radio disc jockey. I need you to sound like some crazy kid or some crazy guy up in this attic, playing records. Don't come across like that professional disc jockey. Try to sound, more amateurish. So if you listen to my early tapes from satellite radio, they're not quite as professional sounding as what I do today because I was asked to be non-professional for the imaging of the show when it was on satellite radio, which I hope to be back on, by the way, in the near future. We are talking, and that is a possibility in the near future.
Well, yeah, we get satellite radio too, you know. We've got all that kind of modern stuff up here, so I know that would have been great. I'd love to be on a satellite radio network. Dave the Rave from somewhere in New Jersey, talking about Relics and Rarities and the No Static Attic. And what you said earlier about having the top-rated show on Saturday night and all the spot, that's the kiss of death in radio. Don't you know that, Dave? As soon as you get successful, you're gone.
Well, you know, I stayed until the end. I was able to stay till the end. And, of course, as you know, sales is important in radio. So the fact that I had the most advertisers on my show, that's the unkiss of death. That means that you're safe because they want the advertising dollars coming in.
Right. Until, of course, they sell the station, so...
Right. In that case, you know, then you are history. But as I said, I got very lucky because, you know, the biggest place I could be on came looking for me. So it was just a real, you know, real stroke of good luck.
How many records again in your collection? About 118,000?
45, about 26,000 albums and about 35,000 CDs. Although my show does pretty much utilize, you know, I'm going to say 75, 85%, you know, off of 45s.
45 now. Is there must be a couple that you're looking for, sort of like the Ty Cobb baseball card thing of the record industry?
Yes, I've got a healthy playlist. I have got a healthy list of records that I'm looking for. You know, I mean, I rattle one off. I could rattle more, but, you know, if there's a listener who's got Is It a Lie by the Mysterians on the Jox, J-O-X record label. It's a label that had a lot of cool garage 45s out of Texas. That's one I still haven't found yet.
Now, is that...
And it's not cheap either. That's going to run between $400 to $600 in that price range. But I'm looking for it. If you've got it, please contact me. Dave at davetherave.com.
Is It a Lie by the Mysterians?
Is It a Lie? L-I-E.
Yeah, Is It a Lie? Now, that's not question mark in the Mysterians.
No, and this is the Mysterions. So it's like M-Y-S-T-E-R-I-O-N-S as in Sam.
Ah, okay. Yes, so you were talking about Richard and the Young Lions. I'd never heard of them until I heard them on your program. So I knew what you were talking about.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, they had 345s, and they actually recently recorded 2 new albums, one that came out last year and one the year before that, and they were produced by Little Steven, and they were put out on Little Steven's record label called Wicked Cool Records. So there's actually new music from Richard and the Young Lions that you can purchase today, and it sounds great.
And is that Miami Steve Van Zandt?
Well, that's formerly known as Miami Steve Van Zandt. Of course, he calls himself today Little Steven. But yes, in the past, he was Miami Steve.
All right. I love it. How many shows, Dave the Rave, Relics and Rarities? We're talking with Dave the Rave himself, the legend. And I listen to you on Top Shelf Oldies. Where else are you available?
Well, you know... right now, I'm available on about 20 other stations. 2 of them are up in Canada. I don't know if you wanted me to mention these other stations up in Canada.
Oh, go ahead. Sure, go ahead.
Well, one of them is, and I believe both stations are probably internet-only stations. Although I am on some FM stations, some AM stations, and some internet-only stations. In fact, about 20 minutes before I came on the air with you today, I actually got a call from a station in England that just picked up my show. So that'll make maybe like 21 stations that I'm on. But, for example, the Canadian stations are yourkawarthaoldies.com. I'm not sure where Kawartha is. I guess that's a city in Canada. yourkawarthaoldies.com. They air the show Friday and Saturday night at midnight Eastern Time. There's a station called Dusty Disc Radio. Dusty, DISC, like in cat, S like in Sam, DustyDiscRadio.com. They air the show 3 p.m. Eastern and midnight Eastern on Sunday. And then, of course, there's about, like I said, 18 other stations that carry the show. So, I guess there's quite a few stations. The best thing to do is there are a listing of not all, but some of the radio stations that carry my show at my website, which is www.davetherave.com.
www.davetherave.com. So do you do one show a week?
So there's 2 shows that I produce a week. One of them, of course, is a live show Sunday nights. That is 9 p.m. to midnight Eastern on www.topshelfoldies, with an S at the end, .org. That is a live show on Sunday night, and I kind of call that my Dave the Rave Unplugged because, there's no pressure. I can do whatever I want to do on that show, and, so it's kind of a cool show, and it's live on Sunday night. There's a chat room. People can join into the chat room and participate, make comments. Then I produce another show, which is usually produced every Thursday evening, and then sent out, in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Eastern Time, and that's the one that's sent out to these 20 or 21 different stations, and then those stations will air that 1-hour show, at different days, different times. Some of the stations repeat it twice a week, 3 times a week. So those are the 2 shows that I do. The one syndicated show, which is the same show basically heard on 21 different stations, and then the live show Sunday nights, 9 p.m. to midnight Eastern on topshelfoldies.org.
What kind of equipment do you use? You have a little home studio, I assume.
I have a home studio, and I'm not very good with technical stuff. I will say this, I'm proud to say that the guy who built my studio, I give kudos to him. It's Tony DiNicola. He is the chief engineer for several stations. The one that maybe your listeners have heard of is something called iHeartRadio. I don't know if that's up in Canada.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay, so Tony DiNicola, the engineer from iHeartRadio, and he's also the chief engineer for, which is how I met Tony. Tony is the chief engineer for Oldies 107.9 and 95.1 FM and 97.3 FM. So I'm on all those stations, and I got to know him, and Tony was, I paid him, and he did a great job putting together a studio for me here at my no static attic home.
Wonderful. And do you have a price tag on some of the more valuable records in your collection?
Well, I mean, the most expensive record I think I have is about $2,200 that I paid for it. It might have gone up in price slightly, and sometimes you buy a record, it goes down, but there are some that I know that have gone up in price, but $2,200. But I do have records that range anywhere from, $25 a record, $100, $500. I'm negotiating right now as we, as we're talking. I put in an offer the other day for something that was $900. I don't want to say what it is because, until I close the deal, I don't want other people looking for the record. But the records can vary in price, from hundreds of dollars to over $1,000 for one single 45. But I will tell you this, fear not, because I do have insurance on my record collection, so if, God forbid, some hurricane wipes me out, I'm getting at least $1 million back in cash, although I probably have spent more than $1 million, but at least I am getting something back. And I know many collectors do not have insurance on their 45 collection, so I hope nothing happens to it.
I was just going to ask if you have insurance, but I think in your other life you're an insurance person anyway, so that would have been a good move.
That is correct, yes.
Did you actually sell yourself the policy or somebody else?
Somebody else. I would have loved to have sold it to myself, but unfortunately, the companies that I rep don't offer that kind of coverage, so I had to go to a large insurance company. So thank you, Chubb Insurance.
Well, they're the people who started out making safes?
I don't know. Making safes?
Yeah, Chubb Safe, CHUBB. They make like steel safes that in bank vaults and stuff.
I'm not familiar with their history, but I think that is how they spell their name. I think you said CHUBB.
Yeah. So.
And if they're listening, now that they got their name mentioned, please send a check for some of the advertising over to Dennis Rimmer, my good friend in Canada.
Wonderful. Where do you store all these things? In your mother's attic?
I have a good-sized attic. I know that the imaging of my show is that of a double-wide mobile trailer, a hoarder house of hell. That's... listen, I'm going to reveal the secret on Dennis Rimmer because he's a good listener to the show. It's actually a pretty big-sized home that I live in, so there is plenty of room, and I'm really not in jeopardy of walking on my 45. But it sounds cool to say that on the radio.
It does, and I promise you that. Dave the Rave with the Relics and Rarities show from the No Static Attic somewhere in New Jersey. Give us that website one more time.
Well, my website, which you can buy a T-shirt at too, there's my plug, is www.davetherave.com. And as I like to say sometimes, Dave the Rave with all the records you crave, come to you on a Sunday night here on Top Shelf Oldies. Honored to be on the phone with the great, the one, the only, the legendary Dennis Rimmer.
Dave the Rave, thank you very much. It's been a treat.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be on the show, and hope some of your listeners will tune in on some Sunday night or check out my website. And Dennis, honored to be part of the program, and best and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you for visiting with us today. This is Talking Books and Stuff with Dennis Rimmer. Contact him at dennis@talkingbooks.tk. Thank you, and may all the good news be yours. Oh, and don't forget to check out his book, The Great Canadian Notebook, available across Canada and at amazon.ca.